Welcome to Microsoft Mechanics. Coming up, I'll give you a hands-on tour of security, compatibility, and manageability of the new Microsoft Edge browser. Now, the new Microsoft Edge is based on Chromium and designed to be the best browser for business. And if you missed our previous shows on large-scale Edge deployment and the integrated search experience with Microsoft Search, you can check those out at aka.ms/edge4it. Let's start with security and what sets Edge apart from other browsers. Now, security is at the foundation of Edge and the MS-Edge.exe process itself, which is important because so much malware comes in from the internet via the browser. Now, this is best shown by using Process Explorer, and behind it I have both Edge and Internet Explorer open to the same three websites. If you look at the integrity column of the MS-Edge.exe processes here, these are all frames of the open pages, and they're running at the lowest possible level of integrity, which is called untrusted, with zero privilege. Now, this means it can't even write to your local file system. Now, if we turn our attention over to the IE processes, there are three. So we can emulate the integrity level by running notepad.exe with psexec in low integrity mode. We'll do that by using the L switch, and that will open up Notepad. So I'll go ahead and type test, then I'll save it to my documents folder. And just to prove it, I'm going to navigate to my local disk and documents folder in my user profile. Now I'll give it a name, I'll call it low, and it won't save. In fact, Windows recommends to save it to the location where I currently am. That means that those untrusted processes that we saw in Edge, they can't write to our local disk either. Now, process isolation is critical here for both security as well as reliability. So let me open up Process Explorer again. And as you can see, each of the tabs within MS-Edge.exe are isolated as well as any of the child components on the pages themselves. So I'll minimize Process Explorer and go to the MSN tab in my Edge browser. And if an ad is running on that page, it's not going to have access to other content on the same page. I'm going to right-click in the tab area of Edge and then open up the Browser Task Manager, and we'll see the processes that are running in the browser. So I'm going to end a few processes here, and you'll see the frowny face iframe appear. And because the processes are completely isolated from each other, they can't talk to each other or affect the stability of the rest of the page. Now, if we go back into the Process Explorer, we'll see a result of killing all these processes in the Browser Task Manager. You'll see here that only half of the processes that we saw earlier are still running. Now, I'll refresh the page now, and we'll go back to Process Explorer, and we'll see all those processes come back. Now, one more thing I'll point out in Process Explorer, by going to View, then Show Lower Pane, we'll see that Edge also runs in an alternate desktop. Now, what this does is it provides an additional boundary for window messages, so it can break out and talk to other process windows. Now, in addition to the secure foundation, Edge can help protect your network and devices from malicious attacks and prevent unauthorized access and leaks of corporate data. So Microsoft Defender Smart Screen provides an early warning system against known websites that might engage in phishing attacks or attempt to distribute malware through a focused attack. Now, Microsoft maintains a massive site reputation list to protect your browsing. So here I'm in a simulator site for Microsoft Defender and want to show you a few more protections. So first, I'm going to click on a phishing page link, and we'll see that Smart Screen blocks the site and also flags us that it's unsafe. And here I can get more information that this is a known phishing site and all the dangers. So I'll close this tab, and the next thing I want to show you is the malware page. Now we'll see the same type of block, same user message, along with more information about malware and the risks. I'll close this. So now I'll click into the suspected phishing page, where I can actually provide input, report the page as safe or unsafe, and if I click that button, it gives me a few options, and if I submit the form, it's actually going to protect future visitors to the site. Next, I'll try potentially unwanted download. So this protects against potentially unwanted apps, or PUAs. Now here we'll see that we're trying to download freevideo.exe, and Edge is blocking it. Now I can take the recommended path to delete it, but if I trust it, I can also choose to keep it. In this case, I'm going to use the recommendation and delete it. Finally, I'll show you an outright blocked download, and even though both attempts tried to block freevideo.exe, the blocked downloads URL has an even lower reputation, so it was presented as a block. So staying with the theme of isolation, I want to show you something unique to Windows 10 called Microsoft Defender Application Guard. Now this takes process isolation to another level by opening the browser process in a Hyper-V Krypton container, and it runs completely outside of Windows. So let me show you how that works. So I have another window of Edge open here, and I can click on the shield icon. We'll see that this is running an application guard. We can see evidence of this also in the taskbar by these little shield glyphs on top of both Edge and File Explorer. And I'm in a malware research page that hosts live malware packages, and I want to download the first one. I've already got the downloads folder open in this case, so you'll see our zip file. But I want to show you a couple other things. I'm on a Surface Book here. It's got a 1 terabyte drive, and you'll see that this environment is isolated with about 40 gigabytes of storage. And when I click into the C drive, you'll see this isn't the Windows file system that you know from the root of C. So now I'm going to open up the zip that we just downloaded, and we'll see it's blocked. And even if this was a 0-day and executed, all the damage would be contained within the container, completely isolated from Windows. And once I log out, it's gone and will reset the rest of the Windows container as well. One thing to note is that we have limited broker processes that enable user interaction, like we just saw, as well as telemetry like Microsoft Defender ATP, so we can monitor activities and alert your SecOps teams if anything malicious happens in the context of Application Guard. Now, the last thing I want to show you for Edge security are the controls and policies that you can set from Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Here you can also use security baselines for Edge. And this will configure the recommended set of controls, including the ones I just mentioned, as well as many others. Now, this is designed for high security configurations, and you can use these as your starting point, then tailor controls to your specific needs. Okay, so that was security, but let's switch gears to compatibility. Microsoft Edge is built to be compatible with both the modern and legacy web. Now, Internet Explorer mode ensures that you can use legacy functionality like document modes, ActiveX, browser helper objects, and IE settings, and group policies that affect security zones and protected mode. Let me show you the experience when navigating to a site that you've defined to open in the context of IE. So here's the IE5 homepage from the year 2000. With Edge using enterprise mode, you'll see that we can render Internet Explorer dependent pages in the same browser instance. Just the IE icon here indicates that we're using IE mode. But as you saw, it doesn't launch a second window anymore, and the user doesn't really need to know that the site is rendering using Internet Explorer. And it works the other way around too, so you can actively prevent people from using IE. So here I'm going to go ahead and copy that same URL. I'll switch to another desktop with Internet Explorer that's already open. I'll open a new tab, paste in the URL, and you'll see it pushes me back to the new Edge browser. So next, I want to show you how to configure this for your sites. So now chances are you already have an enterprise mode site list, and if you did this after 2015 using the version 2 schema, you might not need to do anything for your IE mode sites to open in the context of Edge. So now let's look at how you can configure enterprise mode to determine how and where sites will be rendered. To do that, I'll use Enterprise Mode Site List Manager, and that lets you add individual URLs and paths to specify whether they render using enterprise mode or not. So first, you'll start by downloading and installing the Enterprise Mode Site List Manager. You can get that at aka.ms/emslm. And you'll see it runs on Windows clients and servers that are running Windows 7 and newer. Now I'll switch to show you how sites are added. So you'll add sites that you want to target with enterprise mode, and I already have web.archive.org here configured, but I'll show you how to add another site with the tool. So I'll click Add. Now I'll paste in the URL or path that you want to render inside of IE mode, and you don't need to include the HTTP or HTTPS designations here. The open inbox then specifies the browser you want to use. You can select IE11 to render in IE, or MS Edge to render in Edge. Now if you choose none, this is called a neutral site. You'll usually want to add and configure some neutral sites, which will stay in the context of the open and running browser, whether that's Edge or IE. In my case, I'll choose IE. Next, the standalone IE checkbox says where it will open, and the recommended setting here is to leave that unchecked so everything stays in the context of the Edge browser. Otherwise, it will spawn a second window of IE. And if you check the Allow Redirect, the redirected site will open with the browser that's rendering specified in the open-in control. In Compat mode, you can choose the IE level that you want to load the site in. Now there are many options to choose from. In most cases, you'll use the default mode. Now I'll click Save, and this tool is going to generate an XML file that's used by policy controls. So I want to save the XML. In my case, I'll go ahead and overwrite one that I previously built. And now with the XML finished, we need to save it to somewhere safe that user PCs can reach and configure group policy to enable enterprise mode for the sites that we just defined in our list. Now to enable enterprise mode and group policy, there are two options, one in the IE node and one in the Edge node. Now the IE method is preferred and in most cases is just one setting to configure. I'll show you how. So here I'll open up gpedit.msc, and I'll stretch the window out a little bit to make everything viewable. We'll go to Administrative Templates, Windows Components, Internet Explorer, and then use Enterprise Mode IE Website List. I'll select Enabled. In Options, you'll need to define where the XML is located, and this can be an HTTPS, network UNC, or local file location. And all of your managed devices will need to be able to reach this location in the context of the device. Now, the most common option here is to use a network location, but if a substantial number of users are working remotely, you'll need to ensure they can connect to it via VPN. Now, you can also use an intranet location as HTTPS, but most organizations won't be publishing this to a public location. Now, the next preferred option is to use a local path and deliver the XML as a package and save locally using software distribution tools like Configuration Manager. Now, here's a pro tip. Pay attention to your backslashes here. You can't just paste in the path, but you need to edit it and make sure that you double these up so that it can find that file. Now, finally, we'll click Apply and OK, and the policy is set, and we'll run gpupdate/force, and now the policy is enforced. So now if I open up Edge policies, you can see there are two settings in the Microsoft Edge node root to enable the integration, that's set to 1, and also to point to our site list. Now if you configured enterprise mode policies in the Edge node and GPO, the settings from the Edge node are going to win in case of policy conflicts. Edge node policies are recommended for piloting policy updates because they're going to override existing policies that you set in the IE node. So let's try it out. So I'm going to go ahead and type in web.archive.org, the other site that was in our site list, and it opens up in IE mode. Now, one more note for compatibility. If you're currently defaulting all of your traffic or all internal intranet traffic to IE, there are tools to help target the sites that actually need enterprise mode so you can start using modern rendering for everything else and take advantage of those security benefits that I mentioned earlier. And once you have Edge deployed with your security and compat settings configured, it's time to consider your update management or servicing options for Microsoft Edge. Now, if you saw our Edge deployment episode, I demonstrated a new control as of Configuration Manager 2002 that adds a checkbox as part of the package creation process, allowing Edge to automatically update itself when updates are ready. So to do this in Configuration Manager, when you build the package, you choose your release channel, the latest or specific version, and our automatic update setting that you see here. Now, automatic updates are the most common option that IT admins use when managing other common Chromium-based browsers like Google Chrome, and it's the recommended setting. That said, there are several controls for managing updates manually, and in Configuration Manager, you can also use the standard update approval process and flow. Additionally, there are new ADMX-based policies with new options. First, to get the policy templates, you head over to aka.ms/edgeenterprise, and choose Get Policy Files to download the ADMX files that you need. So you can now use policies to limit update build levels to specific target versions in Edge, as long as they're build 83 and newer, using the Edge target version override policy found in Administrative Templates, Microsoft Edge Updates, Applications, Microsoft Edge. Now with this control enabled, you can set the version of the build number that you validated, then change the target version using this policy as you validate and approve newer builds. In the future, you could continue updating that version number via policy and do that centrally as future Edge updates are validated and approved. Now, as part of validation, one last policy I want to show you is in Administrative Templates, Windows Components, Internet Explorer. It's called Configure which channel of Microsoft Edge to use for opening redirected sites. Now, as an internal developer, or maybe as a pilot user, you can test new releases and you can set channel priority. So you can see here there's a first choice, second choice, and third choice. And if these channels aren't present on a system, it will continue working down that list until it finds one of those choices. And with Edge channels for stable, beta, dev, and canary, you can run those versions side by side. Now, side-by-side installation is recommended for testing and validating capabilities early on while managing risk. And remember that both stable as well as beta channels of Edge are both fully supported by Microsoft. So that was a review of the technology and underlying controls for Edge security, compatibility, and update management. Check out our full playlist for Microsoft Edge at aka.ms/edge4it for more information. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Microsoft Mechanics for the latest tech updates. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.